Welcome to the Moray College Student Peer Support Group showreel. I am Joel Hockney. I am the Mental Health Coordinator from the Highlands and Islands Student Association, HISA. We are the student association connected with University of Highlands and Islands, UHI. Now, before we get started off with the showreel, I would like to thank all those involved with the formation of the Moray College Student Peer Support Group and have helped it come along to this journey where I am speaking to you today about the group and all of the work that it has currently done. While I will be speaking today about the Moray College Student Peer Support Group, or MC-SPG, this was initially founded before my time in employment at HISA as a student association assistant based in Moray College, UHI, as well as their mental health coordinator. What you will get out of this showreel is an understanding of how a student peer support group can be founded, how it can be operated, a knowledge of those challenges, and the potential solutions to mitigating those challenges when either founding a student peer support group or maintaining its sustainability. As you can see by this next slide, we have many of the members who were critical to the formation of the Moray College Student Peer Support Group. You can see me towards the centre left with my green hoodie, which I would go about in and speak to students outside of the sessions of the Moray College Student Peer Support Group to speak to them about what might be challenging or stressing them out and inviting them along to the Student Peer Support Group. To my left, there is Becky Ponya, who was a student who was there from day one with me at the Student Peer Support Group and then became the co-facilitator of the group and then later on became the lead facilitator of the group. In front of me is Heather Henderson, the Student Services Manager at Moray College, UHI. She was the critical individual who persuaded me to form the Student Peer Support Group and passed me on to Nicole Hislop, who's a student guidance advisor, who's not here in this picture, sadly. Also critical to the formation and sustainability of the Moray Wellbeing Hub is Heidi Tweedy, who acted as a mentor role for me and also provided, through the Moray Wellbeing Hub, lots of training opportunities for me. These include peer-to-peer and SQA course, which is critical for anyone who wants to do something like a student peer support group or a peer support group, and also mental health first aid training. To the far right of the picture, you have Chris Ritchie, who is also a director of the Moray Wellbeing Hub. This picture was taken in a partnership deal between Moray College UHI and the Moray Wellbeing Hub to work closer together, and one of these elements was the Moray College Student Peer Support Group. Currently, Moray College Student Peer Support Group, the main responsibility of the Moray Wellbeing Hub is with supervision by the Moray College, as I will describe later with the structure of the Moray College Student Peer Support Group. But it would not be here today or been sustainable without the help of the Moray Wellbeing Hub. So to give a timeline of when the Moray College Student Peer Support Group came to be, was that it was informally founded by myself around the latter half of 2016 while I was, as I previously mentioned, while I was a student studying an honours degree at Moray College. During this part of the latter half of 2016, it was an informal group. However, I was still regularly supervised by the student guidance advisor Nicole, who I would regularly report to about how it was going. From the start of 2017, Nicole got me in touch with Heidi Tweedy, who is the lead director of the Moray Wellbeing Hub, as I mentioned before, but also the founder. And from that point, Heidi Tweedy was a mentor figure for me and gave me invaluable guidance on how to run in a formal way. I was, at the same time, having some challenges to my own life and well-being, and it was Heidi Tweedy who kind of made me use those experiences effectively as they could be to whenever I would have those conversations within the support group to use my experiences and how I've overcome them in helping others. These include, just very, very briefly, for example, while I did still have some challenges to my mental well-being, that I was an example of someone who had recovered significantly from my own mental well-being challenges, and I could demonstrate that to students that it is possible. It is possible to overcome the challenges or alleviate some of the issues within your life, or even just if the challenges and issues could not be solved, that there are ways of handling and dealing with those challenges with support of other people, or just reaching out for help for better ways of dealing with those stresses. So from this 2017, it was formally created with the help of Heidi Tweedy being as a mentor figure to give me all of that training, got me onto peer-to-peer training, mental health first aid training, and also all other different types of training that would be critical and helpful for me to running the peer support group as effectively as it could be. Moving now on to the structure of the Moray College UHI Student Peer Support Group, which I hope you all can see on the video itself right now. Now from this you can see that there are lots of different arrows that are going off in different directions here. It is a student peer support group, a very much a group effort across different areas of a university or a college. In order for it to be as successful as it can be, there needs to be a level of collaboration between all individuals surrounding a possible student peer support group. The easiest way to begin or support the formation of a student peer support group is through a student association. And for a student association to speak to the student services or a campus student support service manager about how it is going to be and how the structure of it is going to come about. In the example of the Moray College UHI student peer support group, this wasn't the case. I was just a student that went to the student services directly, and that's also okay. But from my experience with the support that HISA gave before I was in employment and I was effectively doing this peer support group part-time by myself with the support of the college and Moray Wellbeing Hub. And I can say if the Student Association HISA was aware of Student Peer Support Group at its formation, the whole process would have been a lot more smoother. And I can heartily recommend getting a Student Association to be kind of the driver, really, to making a Student Peer Support Group with the resources that they have on hand. But not also just in terms of forming it, but also just kind of keeping an eye on the Student Peer Support Group and making sure that all members of however the structure of your potential student peer support group, if you would like to make one, whether you're a student, staff, or a member of student association is coming along, you're going to want to have regular meetings with everyone to make sure the communication lines are always open and regular so you can address any sort of challenges as soon as possible. So once there is an agreement in place between the college and the student association, or the college, the student association, and the third party, in this particular case between the Moray College UHI and Moray Wellbeing Hub, and then you're going to be wanting to starting the group sessions of the student peer support group. I won't go into too much details about my recommendations of how you would form it and how you would structure it and what rules you would put in place, simply due to the limit of this presentation of the show reel to you today. But if anybody did have questions about that, I'm more than welcome to answer any of your questions. But also, just as an extra note here about this diagram that I've got here, is that you can clearly see that the Student Association also has a key part in encouraging students to go to the support group, which was in my case once the Student Peer Support Group was up and running and HISA was aware of the group. It really did help direct students towards it as an alternative form of support if they found that other support services that were currently available weren't suitable for them, and the Student Peer Support Group was great for them. HISA was also really, really beneficial for that. As something I will later on discuss, one of the key challenges to a Student Peer Support Group is sustainability. So in many ways, you're going to be wanting to have students to come along to the support group to, make sure that that service is available to all students that would want to use it. But it's also critical to the success of its sustainability. As you may have noticed, there's a student for only so long. And in my case, I finished my course, my degree, and then there was no new student to take it over. So I had an agreement with the Moray College to carry it over until Becky became the co-facilitator and then the lead facilitator when she was a student. But you're always going to be wanting to look for more students to take over as a lead student facilitator, because part of the real strength of the support group is that it's mutual. Everybody there is a student. That's something they all have in common as a peer to support one another. You all have that lived share experience. Even if you're from all different walks of life, you have that in common. So you're really going to be wanting to make sure that you can keep on getting new students to be co-facilitators and then lead facilitators and just keep that going. Now, as for the mentor and trainer position there, in my case, that was Heidi Tweedy, who was the mentor and trainer. But then after I had finished as the lead student facilitator in this particular example, I was the mentor and trainer for a short period of time before I then was employed by HISA. Once a student has finished being a lead student facilitator and potentially they have a bit of time between their next job or wherever they're going to be going in their life, they then become the mentor and trainer. Of course, that might not always be possible, in which case it would be good to have someone that is always a dedicated mentor and trainer. In many cases, I could see that many campuses which would like to form a student peer support group may not have that luxury of a third party or another individual who is trained in peer-to-peer training, and in which case you might want to have your supervisor role as also the mentor role, depending on the amount of resources and availability of staff that you have on hand. As for the supervisor role, that is somebody you're always going to be wanting to be had as a member of staff from the student services from the campus. In this particular situation, this was Nicole. She was the one I would be having regular fortnightly updates with to make sure that I wasn't being overwhelmed. But also, if there was anything within the support group that was too much for me to handle, or if I had a concern about a student, I would then go to Nicole directly or with the student, and that would then be addressed. And if Nicole wasn't there, I'd be going to somebody from student services. Obviously, if it was something urgent, I'd contact the emergency services, but never during my time was that something that fortunately had to be. And of course, you would have the manager of the campus supervisor who would then be overseeing that element there. Obviously, that was just a very, very quick rundown of the structure here of the potential student peer support group. It may look a little bit different. It may look a little bit different if you wanted to form your own student peer support group at your campus, whether you're a student staff member or somebody from the student association, whether you're an elected officer or a supportive staff there. But it should, in my opinion, follow this diagram line if you want to make sure that it's going to be as effective as it can be. Now let's just look over quickly of some of the goals of the Moray College Student Peer Support Group. As you might imagine, the main goal of the group was to create a friendly, supportive environment to discuss all personal stresses and mental well-being for students without judgment at all for them, but was also anonymous. Part of this goal within that, we have some other sub-goals within that, and one of these was, as is the structure of a student peer support group, it is an alternative support system for students other than staff support services or signposting students to external services. A peer support group is different in many different ways. It is alternative in many of the ways that we think about mental well-being support. But for everyone's journey to recovery is different. And from the support group, the peer support group, that might be better for a student or an individual, if that is, or an individual in the example of other support groups that are out there for individuals. Everybody's road to recovery is different, and the peer support group is alternative to maybe some of the ways that we consider mental health support for individuals. But that element of mutuality is really, really strong. It's something which I've experienced while I was the lead facilitator of the groups. It's key and part of the name there with facilitator. I was also inputting there, but even when I was there with the group, I was receiving support from students, and that within itself for them, I could imagine would feel great as it did for me with my road to recovery. This alternative support of a peer support system for students is effective and safe for students when it is done correctly, and when you have a facilitator that is trained and is able to lay out a group agreement at the start of every session. And for this, maybe not so much a goal, but one of the key elements of the peer support group is that it might be something which has not been accessible for students before. Wherever they've come from, they might not have been able to have this element of mutuality in support. Maybe they've never been able to have those heart-to-heart chats with other people within their family or friends or schoolmates or work colleagues, and that is something which this peer support can offer to students during their time studying. And another goal, again, for this student peer support group is to have all members of the facilitators of the group to be sufficiently trained in peer support. And that is a goal, but also a necessity of the group to effectively and safely lead the discussions. As I've mentioned previously, what I would say is always critical for a student to have is to have peer-to-peer SQA training as well as mental health first aid training. And those two really should form the basis for training. If a staff member, whether that's a supervisor or a mentor, as previously described in that structure, they need to be there in that group if they think a lead facilitator is not trained or doesn't have enough experience yet. Obviously, that kind of defeats the purpose of the mutual peer element of a peer support group. But in order for it to run safely, that is going to be critical for that group to run safely. And it's always better to try and run a group safely, even if you think that it loses out on its effectiveness a bit. And another goal of why it is important to have students be the lead facilitators is to maintain that ethos of mutual peer support, but also for lead facilitators who are in a state of good mental well-being, which I would also describe as a necessity for facilitators to have a good level of mental well-being, is to show that the recovery is real to other students. If they have that experience of low mental well-being or have had challenges to their mental health previously, of course, there might be students out there who haven't had those experiences before but really, really want to get involved in something like this, in which case, again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be less effective. But in that case, with that lead facilitator, it's important for them to find a co-facilitator or find ways of talking about their own experiences about other things, which might not be to do with low mental health, but significant stressful times in their life as well. Now, just to quickly cover some of the successes which we've had in the Moray College Student Peer Support Group, is that almost every session that has been run since 2017, there is always almost been at least one or two students who've made use of the service. In part, this is thanks to HISA advertising the group to the wider student body, but also the word of mouth element of the availability of the group as well. One of the most outstanding achievements, in my belief, of the support group was that in one session I had 8 male students and 8 female students. So a total of 16 students at one session, which was nearing the capacity of what I was able to handle and make sure that every student got the most out of that session. But I will always remember that particular session, as every student that did come along there did have a level of maturity, even if there were quite a few students there that day, and it was a very good discussion amongst all of them. Also, the group has so far succeeded in having roughly equal numbers of men and women attend the group, which is a great success within itself, as men usually demographically make less use of such services. So this is really good to see. But it was generally good to see that we were getting a good mix between men and women attending groups to also share their different experiences. Another success is that around a quarter of students have disclosed within the group that they've come from a minority group. Have disclosed they've come from a minority group, which has been really, really good to see as well. The main demographic of attending students have been, as can be expected, aged 16 to 25. But there has been a few mature students that have come along and attended as well, which is good to see. And one of the key elements of the success of the support group is that of the facilitators of the support group, we've managed to improve our mental well-being by supporting others and by being supported by other students as well within part of the group. And for me, I've managed to go into a completely different line of career than I thought I would do. Not really directly correlated to my course that I was studying, but it has been absolutely fantastic. And I would say without this support group, I would not be speaking to you. I would not be anywhere near the sector, most likely, of student unions or campus university work. So that's been a real key success, and I think would also be a success of anybody else who will be running a student peer support group in future, is that the students that come along to these and volunteer and become facilitators then have that really, really key work experience element for anything they would want to go into as well. So it's great for the students, but it's also really, really great for the facilitators as well. Now, to quickly cover some of the amazing quantitative data that we've received back in feedback forms, you can see here on the video screen of some of the great feedback that we've had. We would ask them at the start of every academic year, or when the student first came along to the support group session, to fill out this feedback form at the end of the session, and then we would ask them again at the end of the academic year, or when perhaps they would say that they won't be coming back to the support group for whatever reason. It has been a little bit tricky getting feedback, but this has been from 2 years of 2017 to 2018. This has been really, really great feedback, and we can very clearly see that we've been making an impact on students' well-being. To further reinforce the impact that we've been having on students, this is some of their statements which they've put on the feedback forms of how we've been improving. I currently don't have time to read all of these, so if you'd like to pause the presentation and just have a quick read of these in full, feel free to do so. Now, the challenges that we've faced with the formation and sustainability of the support group. As I've alluded to many times previously in the show reel, the biggest challenge that we have faced, and I suspect for all student peer support groups that may be formed in future, is consistently finding students to take up the mantle of facilitation. Ideally, you always want to have a facilitator and a co-facilitator, or just 2 facilitators in general, so you can have a debrief and just talk through some of the things, but also have a supportive another voice at the end of session if there are concerns about a student or just other things in general around the running of the group. But as students are students for only so long, this is quite a challenge within itself. The main way to alleviate this challenge really is to advertise the group as much as possible, if you are not already. Get in contact with the student association, the marketing teams at your campus, and advertise the group, because the more students you have come along, not also are they benefiting from the service you're putting on, but more likely that you're going to have students that are going to be mature enough and also going to be there long enough to go through the training to then become facilitators for a good period of time. I must stress this will be most likely your single largest challenge if you want to form your own support groups. It is the single largest challenge that the Moray College Student Peer Support Group has faced, and I can imagine during this time it will also be a challenge for you all if you want to make your own peer support groups. Advertising the group has also been a challenge, simply due to the breakneck speed of social media, and for myself, when I was the lead facilitator, it's quite difficult putting in resources and time into advertising when you're putting a lot of that effort into the group itself. Also, another challenge is maintaining good records and getting feedback from students with the running of the group. Again, it's to do with time and resources of that student. That might be something which either the student service supervisor or even the student association can help with in making those feedback forms. But for myself, when I was running the group, didn't have that exact luxury at the time until the Moray Wellbeing Club helped me out with the feedback forms. And obviously, GDPR for me was kind of a concern because I wanted to make sure that all of the data would be protected safely, but also that we were getting good data to really show that we were making an impact, and also to see where we could improve as well. Just to quickly cover some of the elements of looking forwards with the Moray College Student Peer Support Group. Now, the model of Moray College SP-SG was going to be used at Inverness College UHI. However, this was before the global pandemic and lockdown. It is still in a state of limbo of the final process being approved and finalised, but that's great to see that this student peer support group will hopefully, after the lockdown is over, can now be reused for the Inverness College UHI student peer support group. And one of the great benefits of working at HISA and the University of Highlands and Islands is the partnership between all 13 campuses. So it's hoped that with my work as being the mental health coordinator at HISA, that if there is such an opportunity, that other student peer support groups will be founded based upon the Moray College Student Peer Support Group model. But obviously, as the lockdown is having an impact on everybody's time and resources, I'm not sure that will be likely anytime soon. And there's one unfortunate side note of the coronavirus and the lockdown is that during this difficult time, the current Moray College Student Peer Support Group is currently suspended until we can find a new way of running it online. Of course, some might argue that now was more important with students struggling with social isolation and not able to contact other people within their social spheres. But there are also many dangers in running a support group online. Not having that immediacy, physical immediacy, it's more difficult to have that chat with students, and more difficult to have that sort of organic physical communication as well. So if there are concerns about students, it's going to be more difficult to handle and such, and there are also other difficulties and challenges with running a group as well. So for the time being, the Moray College Student Peer Support Group is on hold. I would strongly recommend not going for a student peer support group at this current time unless you can ensure that you can make a huge effort into running it safely. As I mentioned before, with the diagram between all of the different partners involved in making a support group, the student association, the campus student services, a potential third party, you need to have an amazing amount of communication to make sure it's running as well. And also the training opportunities for students are more limited online as they would be before lockdown, to make sure that you can get good facilitators. If you do have more questions about the show reel, or you would just like more information about how it came to be, or how it was founded, or how you might be able to found your own student peer support group, you can contact me at joel.hockney@uhi.ac.uk, or at Twitter at just simply @joelhockney. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my show reel today. It's been a massive, massive impact, this group, on my personal life, my personal well-being, and I hold it up as one of my greatest achievements. But I'd also like to thank again all those who have been involved in making this possible, and for keeping me at it, keeping me going with the support group and not letting it go. So thank you again for those who've watched this presentation, but thank you again for all those who have supported me from an extremely low state of mental well-being to a very positive one, with this as something I like to share with all campuses at UHI and potentially further abroad. And while I was obviously the key driver of the support group, it simply would not be possible without all those I've previously mentioned. Thank you. This has been the showreel on the Moray College Student Peer Support Group. Thank you all for listening, and have a lovely day.